Welcome to the 301 Podcast, the interview podcast for the hottest up-and-coming entrepreneurs, artists, and creators. Real, authentic, and inspiring. And here is your host, Marcus Engel. Let's get it started in 301.
Today in the 301 Podcast, Eva Glasbeek. She's a creative, freelance filmmaker and photographer. And today I'm super excited to talk with you about creativity, filmmaking, photography, and how you teach the next generation of freelance videographers. And we also find out if she earns 60,000 euro a month or not. So you have to stick around until the end, of course. Eva, welcome to the 301 Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we start off, let's choose favorites.
Okay.
Filming or photography?
Oh, no, I can't do that. No, I think my main has always been videography, but it really depends. It comes in seasons. Sometimes I really feel much more drawn towards photography because it's like quick and snappy, and video needs a lot of like editing and stuff as well. But then with video, I can get my style across a little bit more and have more input. Depends. Really depends.
With what did you start?
Video.
Video. Interesting.
Yes. No, I mean, I'm sure I took... No, video. I had a little camcorder and I always took it on holidays with my parents, and then I could pause the recording in the same take, if that makes sense. So I could film a take and then pause it and then change something in the frame and then continue filming, which back then I didn't know, but it was stop motion videography. And that made me, I could really create little like magic shows and stuff because I could film myself somewhere, pause the recording, then jump off out of the screen, and then I would disappear and stuff. And that's how I kind of got into it. But video first, and then photography with my friends, and then loads of more videography. Yeah.
How old were you when you then first created like content in the end?
I don't know. It just came very natural to me. I just loved doing it. It was kind of like a form of, like how you just meet friends and play a game, a board game, or do dress up or whatever. That's what I did with videography and photography. Like I just always had I think my parents always had like a little camera, like a little Canon XS 105. I still use that one for like old school kind of vibe. And my mom had also invested in like a mirrorless camera. So I just always had those tools, and I just loved creating stuff with it. I've also always been very into makeup and fashion and everything. So I just loved playing around with friends and just creating things and capturing them. But yeah, it's always been a very natural thing, and nothing that I saw as or looked as like, oh, that's going to be my job or something. It's just like, I love doing this.
Do you remember like the first time that you were kind of like proud of something that you created?
There's one video that I have in my mind now. It was with a girlfriend from school. I think I was like 17 or 18 or something. And I did her hair and her makeup, and we went like into a little woods area near my neighborhood. And then I made this little video of her kind of like being lost and like super creative and like, I don't know, a little bit like spiritual kind of video. But I really liked the way it looked. But then I never thought, I never thought of it for my friend, because she was just helping me out because she was my friend. She didn't really necessarily like the video or something. And I really wanted to post it online on Facebook or Hives back then. But then she said like, yeah, I wouldn't really feel comfortable doing that, because obviously she was like in all full makeup and everything, and she didn't want the classmates to see it. But that was the first time I was like, oh, I'm really proud of that video and I really want to share it. But she wouldn't let me, which I now understand. Back then I hated it.
But it's actually crazy, right? Like how much, like now when you tell those stories, like it makes so much sense that you are like that you work in this field today or something like this. You think like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I never thought that would actually, like, I don't know, like, I hoped I could do this. But I always thought like, oh, at one point I have to pick like an adult job because I can't do this forever. Well, I was wrong there, luckily. But yeah, it took a while before I realized that I could actually like earn money with it. And also then a little while after that, I realized like I could make good money with it as well, not just to survive or whatever. But it was really great.
And how was then the journey for you? Like when was the moment that you realized like, oh, I think I can actually make a living with this?
Well, I think like I used to help out friends or the friends of my parents or just people I knew from where I lived. And I created a video or photo shoot here and there for like 50 quid or like 100 euros or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool, that's nice. But then I got asked to do a wedding video for a young couple. And they had found me through a video they had seen, or someone else recommended me. I can't really remember. But it was the first time I did it. And instead of them asking me how much I would ask for it, they had a budget. And the budget available was 750 euros. And I was like mind blown that what? Like people would pay that. And mind you, I was like, I probably don't get the ages right, but I think I feel like I was like 17 or something when this happened. And I was like, okay, sick, cool. I told them that it was my first time, but I was willing to give it a try. And they were like nice enough to just let me do my thing. And it turned out great. I'm still really happy with that video, even though you can tell that it's time ago. But then that same month, I had another job, like an after movie of an event with loads of musicians in it. And then there was one particular musician that I really liked. And I can't remember, but I reached out to her, or she reached out to me, that she wanted to do like a music video. And we filmed that the same kind of week, I think. It went really quickly. And also that video was a similar amount. And then I was like calculating. I was like, hold on a minute. I think I just made like my first like 1,500 or 2,000 euros. I was like, well, I can make a living. Like I can do that. But then obviously you need to figure out how you can do that every month. But it really started rolling from that moment. And it was just the first... 18, 19, I think, where I was like, okay, maybe I can just do it next to my job. I worked in a bar and then see where I go. But very quickly, I was just doing that, just making videos and photos. Yeah.
What I find impressive is that like right after your study, you basically went directly into,
during my studies. But that is genuinely because I just had the time for it because the study wasn't really demanding. And when you love something so much, and it sounds so cringy, but like I've always done it. Like even when there was no money involved, no whatever big things, it was just because it was my way of expressing myself, I think. And I've just always played around with it. And every little moment I had, I did that. And sometimes I miss that part of myself, because back then I was like grinding my way somewhere. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I was doing something or wanted to do something with it. But then now, like obviously because I'm doing different things, I sometimes like, why do I not why don't I just grab my camera and create something? It's been so long since I've done that, but I don't know, it just comes with adulting, I think.
I think also, of course, the rising pressure of like things as well, right? Like, I mean, of course, you have to pay rent, you have to eat, you want to wear something cool, you have your clients that you need to serve.
Yeah.
I recently read a really cool sentence. It said like, the shoemaker's son is always walking barefoot. And I think that is like super
That's
true.
It.
Yeah, like, for example, I have this amazing studio. I had it like, I don't know, like I think 8 months or something. And then I pitched to a client, and this client looked me in the eyes and said like, but why are you not creating in the studio? And it was like,
why am I not doing that?
Exactly, right?
So crazy.
And I had a good reason for it, and it was all good, but like still, right? Like, but then you do it so many times and you edit so many times, you spend so much time here that you're like, it's also nice to do something else. You know? So I really feel that this for me as well, that like you're okay, why should I grab the camera? Like I don't know, came from a shoot. I just want to relax a little bit.
Yeah,
but I think it all comes with necessity, or like if you're really with the back against the wall, like you would pick up that camera real quick.
Oh, again. I would. But it's just so funny because I think since I created the online academy where I teach other people what I do, it's literally seeing them in that stage of like grafting and doing those things and setting up portfolio shoots and all of those things. The things I don't do anymore. Like I don't really do much of them anymore. Well, not at all really at the moment. But then it's just like I live through them. I'm like, yes. And then if you want to work with that kind of client, then this is what you're going to create and this is what you're going to do. And then that's what the people you're going to reach out to, because that's how I did it. It's kind of like a game you play. But then I sometimes when I'm like after all of this interaction and stuff, I'm like, oh, I really should do that myself again because I haven't done it in so long. And I can notice it now actually because I've been so focused on building this community and building like my online platform around this academy. I sometimes forget that I, as a freelance photographer and videographer myself, I also need to do acquisition and I also need to like reach out and be visible. But then, I can only do, I can
Yeah,
only
you
do
can
so
only do
much.
so much,
But
yeah.
I'm trying to balance it all a little bit. And I'm lucky that even though I don't do acquisition now, I still have regular clients and I still have regular inquiries. But I think if I really wanted to like create a new kind of avenue or new field of clients, then I really have to go back to the drawing board and do the same thing as I teach my students now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you have any like big fail stories from the beginning of like your career?
So yeah, there is one. I also have like a newsletter, and I've literally sent this out like the other week, and it's one of my favorite stories now. Back then it was horrific, but I was asked by someone if I wanted to come to London to film a video for homelessness there. And it was the first time someone ever flew me like to a different city or country, and I was very nervous. And I just recently bought the Sony A7 III, and I did a lot of I watched a lot of tutorials on how to use it properly and make it nice and cinematic, and use it in low lights, all of these settings. And I kind of like copied one of the settings, the S-Log setting, to kind of like do a flat filming where you can do the color grading. I was like, yeah, I see a lot of people do that. Like it's super cinematic. So I did that, put my camera on the back, did the job, filmed an entire day. It was a super emotional, was a super like serious matter. And then in the evening in the hotel, I opened my laptop and checked the footage, and all of the footage had like the thickest grain in them, like literally like not acute grain, not like a cinematic kind of grain, but like grain, like it had been snowing the entire day and it hadn't. So I just completely freaked out. Like it was, I think a solid 70% of the footage had that grain on it. And I was like, okay, well, that's done. Like, I don't know how, and tutorials, called a friend, didn't know what to do. And then I was like, okay, I can do two things. I'm either gonna just throw in the towel and say like, okay, I fucked up. I'm really sorry. Or I'm gonna just pretend like it was on purpose. So they paid me 1,500 euros for this job. So that was also my first like a little bit bigger job. I was like, woo, okay. So I edited like a first snippet for the next day because we had a little bit of shooting left for the next day. And I edited the first snippet. I was like, if I just show it to him and explain that this is my vision for it, then maybe he'll buy it and be like, oh yeah, sure, cool. And then I don't have to worry about it anymore, instead of like editing this entire piece and after a week, like sending it to him. And so I edited a little snippet and I thought, okay, grain, what am I going to do with grain? So I did a lot of like color grading. I added even more grain. I added borders to make it like super vintagey. I gave the little camera shake to make it even more like Super 8 old analog footage. I was like, okay, this is kind of getting somewhere. But then there's also some like awkward scenes where you shouldn't have like anything on it. It's just, it has to be clean. But then I was like, okay, I'm just winging it. And I exported this snippet, and the next day I showed it to him and he absolutely loved it. He was like, oh my God, that's such an interesting approach, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, just I don't know what came over me. And then there was one shot where it's like, well, in that shot, I would like to have the normal, like take off all the special effects. I was like, no, you know what? I would really recommend you not doing that because I couldn't do it. And then later, that turned out great. And then later he recommended me to another client, and that became like a super regular client. I think over the course of like a year, only that client paid like around 10,000. So in my email, I just said like how a $1,000 mistake turned into a 10,000 euro, by the way, client. And it's still to this day, like it just, you know, I could have said like, hey guys, I fucked up. I'm so sorry. Refund, goodbye, like, or try again next time or whatever. But I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna make it work, because the footage was that bad. It was. I'm not exaggerating. It was really bad. But yeah, I learned from it, and actually, it's where I started all of my little analog kind of feels like, oh, cool, just add a bunch of grain and colors, and it will work.
Now every client that hires you is like, oh, I want to have this grain.
Well, it's true. It's kind of my thing. It really is. So.
You can never get out of that anymore.
No, people will never hire me for like super cinematic, like clean stuff. I've always been a little bit
more artistic.
Yeah, but also kind of, I would like to say, now it's become a style, but it was definitely coming from a place of not knowing what I was doing. It wasn't like always a plan. It was just like messy, a little bit shaky, a little bit wonky. And not everything was what I did was perfect, but that's how I learned to develop my own like vision, because I like it that way. I like it a little bit more characteristic and playful, and I don't know, just a little bit more feeling texture to it. But I'm like, if you want to, there are so many people that are great at like cinematography and great at editing, and it's just like smooth, but people don't come for that kind of stuff to me, because it's not what I deliver.
Talking about the creative style and the creative process a little bit, then like how did you find your look? Like, was it then really just serendipity that you said like, oh, I just had a wrong footage, wrong setting, and I just made the best out of it? Or is it also like, did you like how is your creative process? Like, how does it look like? Is it something that you can because I'm also interested, like, is it something that you like can just switch on, switch off? Is it something that you have to put yourself into, like kind of a mood? Or like, how does it work for you?
Yes, a lot of it is serendipity, and a lot of it is also confidence and trust by just doing, because I always say like you won't learn or find your style or whatever by thinking about it. Like that doesn't work. You need to try something out until you can see like, oh, that works, that doesn't work, I hate that, I love that. And I've never been afraid to try it out, because it's such a like second nature to me. I've always walked around with a camera. I've always tried out like new techniques. And then sometimes there would be a moment where I was like, oh, I see someone do this in a video. I'm wondering what that technique is called. Then I'm going to Google it, find out how it works, implement it, see if I like it. And then I think now I just have a little bit of, I just have my own toolkit, a toolkit of like in what kind of situation, what types of shots I get, how many of them I get, how many of them are still, how many of them are moving, close up, wide. I just have a little recipe that I use now for my videos, and also obviously the coloring, like LUTs and grading. It's such it comes down to your taste. Like it's not a one size fits all. Like maybe people find my work too saturated or too bold or whatever, and other people really like it. So I think it's just, I know a lot of techniques, and I created my own little mental toolkit. And sometimes I just look into it and I was like, oh yeah. And sometimes I really have to look at my own videos, because sometimes I'm completely lacking any inspiration. I'm just like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I go back to my earlier videos where I was completely free in creating, so not necessarily working for clients just yet. And I'm like, yes, that's the style I want to embody again today. Because obviously when you start to work with loads of clients, you're going to narrow down your almost creativity sometimes, because for commercial clients, it needs to look a certain way, and you're going to repeat the same thing over and over again. So yeah, you have to really challenge yourself and look into that toolkit every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mentioned, like, I mean, you worked for like a lot of big and global brands too. And of course, that client briefs, I know it from my past working on the agency side, but also on the client side, like the briefs are always very strict. Like, this is our brand, this is what we want.
Yeah.
How do you then like balance this with your creative approach? Like, maybe can you give some tips, or like, how do you like communicate this? Like, how do you make sure you have also that freedom to create? Is it then just like trying out some stuff and then like trying to flip it in and say like, well, I also did this shot.
Well, actually, I used to, if I had I had one recurring fashion client that I did, I think, a total of like 20 something fashion campaigns for. Sometimes I really wanted to try something new, especially in the beginning. Later on, it was more of like a recipe that we repeated. But in the beginning, I remember very well that I really wanted to play around with a specific technique I had in mind. But I knew that if I just told them, it wasn't going to do anything. But if I made something similar and then showed it to them, they could easily say like, oh, we want something like that. And that's exactly what happened. So how I want to like make sure that I can be creative in projects, and sometimes, mind you, it's not possible, and that's totally okay. Sometimes you have clients or projects where you're just like, you show up, you deliver what they want, you do it to the best of your capability, and that's it, instead of like, hey, this is an idea or my approach or whatever. But if you do want to have your own creativity inside of that project, then I would really suggest to ask them beforehand, is there any of my work that speaks to you, and why? that's always what I do with new clients. Like, oh, we really love your video for this and this. We are looking for something similar. Then I know what they're after. I know, like, oh, they're open to creativity, or they're not so open to it. So having a portfolio with different styles or different types of work, so that people can kind of pick from it as if it's a menu and be like, okay, we really want that kind of style, really works for me. And if they don't have that clear, I always suggest a couple of videos that I did myself. I always send like, hey, this is what I could do for your brand. Is that something you're interested in? And then they're probably like, oh, I didn't think of it like that, but yes, that would be cool. And then I know what kind of technique they're after.
And from like a brand perspective, because like this podcast is of course listened by a lot of like, I think solo founders and also people that work for like agencies and in the corporate world. Like from a brand side, like what could the brand do to make like the creative process and like the life a little bit easier of like videographers and photographers in a way?
Well, genuinely just be open to suggestions, because often when a brand hires a creative, then they do that because they want to have their vision or their experience or their skill in their brand. But then what happens, and I've had this so many times where people reach out to me and are like, oh, we really want to spice up our brand, or we really want to target a younger audience, so that's why we're going to hire you. But then alongside the process, they're like, oh, but don't be too crazy, or like don't do anything too colorful or whatever. And then that's where I'm like, okay, but then do you want to target younger audience? Do you want to achieve this kind of stuff? Then I would really suggest from my experience that this is working. And that's also like, just to remind them, like, that's also why you reach out to me. So I think for brands, it's really important to just stay open-minded, and also take risks. I mean, like with this whole current like content and industry and whatever, like it's so easy to copy, like, because there's so much input every day. Nothing is original anymore. Everything is already done before. So if you're just going to copy of like, okay, well, that brand does this, so we want that too. Try not to do that. Try to focus on like individual creatives, like smaller teams or people. Don't necessarily just go to the big production companies because they have the big Arri, Lexa, Mini, whatever camera, or go to the smaller individual people that just really want this, because those people will go, like, they will go there to create with you and really be creative and suggest new things. So I think that's really important, because otherwise we're just going to be one big copying machine. And there's nothing wrong with copying. I mean, it's kind of like inevitable, but I think it's really important to support your locals. Kind of thing.
I fully agree. I think that like it was I think the ceramic producer Hans Grohe, like they started on TikTok, and I think they did like such a cool campaign that they basically gave like, I think like 1K to like TikTok creators, and they just said like, okay, whatever like you want to do of like our shower head or our porcelain set or whatever, and you just create a video. And they did it like back then, I think dancing was a little bit more like a thing, but every single video was like, I think they gained like 24,000 followers in 3 weeks, because every video went viral because like the creators like understood so well like how to do it, for like a brand. And I think it's such a smart approach. While
it is like, if someone gives me complete creative freedom, so they come to me and they're like, okay, well, this is the product, this is our goal, do whatever you want with it. That is the most fun thing for a creative like me or like other people, because as soon as you get that creative freedom, then I'm gonna do my absolute best to find a cool idea or that concept that I have in mind for like years or months already. This is like a play time for me. I can finally, get out everything that is inside of me. So it's really like, I would really recommend giving creative people that freedom, because that's when you're going to get the best out of the collaboration, instead of like, okay, we want this, it needs to look like this. Then someone like me will be like, okay, yeah, I can do that. But that's where it stops. It's just like, I do exactly that. And if you just let me free, then I'll go through anything to get that out there. So yeah, freedom.
I'm curious if that will happen more often in the future, like if brands get a little bit more loose with the whole brand book and brand identity or something, because I think that in the past, like this whole brand recognition was like the biggest thing, and like, oh, you never touch like the brand book, and you cannot use our color in a different like font who cares, and I think that this changes a little bit, and I think that the brands that are a little bit more flexible with that, they really like
they take off. I think it's so interesting because obviously I'm on Instagram a lot and TikTok as well, not as much, but as soon as I do something that doesn't show my actual personality, people are not buying it or people are not interested in it. But as soon as I just am literally authentic or just the way I am, people are like, oh, that's really nice because I feel like I know you. And today, like, coincidence, but like today I spoke to 4 people that have done my actual program to ask them what they thought of it and stuff. And with all 4 of them, I felt like they were friends and I felt like they knew me and I knew them. I have never actually met them face to face or whatever, but because I've always been authentic, I attract people that are like me or that I like. And with that, I have a group of 170 people that are literally the similar kind of people that have the same kind of energy. And it's because I choose to be me. And it's so funny because with other brands, the brands that are taking off right now, it's all based on a personal brand, not because the product is yellow, blue, or purple. It's because the person behind it, it's really funny or is super talented or super rude, but then makes a joke out of it. It's that personality that will stand out because everything else is already copied by now. So
one thing is actually funny because I think that the first time we wanted to record, you canceled because you said, hey, I got like a super short notice shoot in London. I have to do this. And I find it super cool. And I followed you, of course, on Instagram. And you went to the shoot, like you shot it and you delivered like within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like how, and also like in the previous story, you said, oh, I basically created already like a small clip, edited some stuff in the hotel room. Yeah. How important is speed? And do you think that's really something that sets you apart from other people, that you kind of like have something to show after like 24 hours?
I think yes, because for 2 reasons. One of them is just because it makes it easier for you to work, because as soon as you shoot something, I always have a very photographic memory. So I kind of know, I remember which shots were the nice ones and where I didn't like it. So I can, if I do it right off the bat, like straight away, I can edit way quicker because I know exactly where everything is at. Like if I let it sit for a week, I'll have a lot more problems with it. Or I have to use an entire day to spot everything, which normally I don't even do. I know exactly where my shots are. So that is, for me, it's convenient to do it quickly. And yes, it sets you apart because, a lot of people take a longer time. I don't know. I want to make my clients feel important. I want them to see that I put effort in. And for me, I often after a shoot straight away that same evening started editing just to get it out of my system. And also because I'm really excited to see the footage. And also I'm excited to see the colors and everything. So I don't know. It just makes the experience nicer, I think. And also that way you can work more. You can do more shoots within a week if you can deliver in the same day. You can do a lot more and make more money with it, essentially. So the editing process is for me, it's a very, very important thing. And I think for a long time, it's been my USP as well, because I could just get it out like ASAP. And that also comes down to technically you don't necessarily need to be super quick, but it comes down to your decision making and trusting that you make the right decision, because there's so many people that I've worked with that sometimes I'm surprised, like, oh my God, why do you take so long to think whether this is the right shot? Like if it was your first idea, then go with it, trust it. And that's often how I work, just kind of intuitively lay it down. And then often, even though I search through all of the footage, then my intuitive first choice will always be the right one. So it's just, decision making and trusting yourself that can make it really quick.
I also want to talk to you a little bit about your academy. I think it became quite a big part of your life.
Yes.
What I find super impressive is so far, maybe to quickly recap, you basically come from no formal education about how to do this whole thing. It's all self-taught. You put a lot of tears, sweat, blood into it.
Yes.
And now you made it. I think you can.
Wait, I made the program or I made it in general?
No, you can live from it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to. And I think, and what I find super impressive is that you don't gatekeep this, but you basically say, look, I'm opening everything up and I'm making this amazing academy. And I invite a lot of people basically to learn with me how to become a profitable freelance videographer. But maybe you can give like a quick rundown, like how you came up with the idea and also what it is about.
Yeah. So like being self-taught, like in this industry as a videographer and photographer, I learned everything from tutorials, other people, and just trying out a bunch of stuff. And like I said, I didn't want to do a study that was for a film academy. I didn't want to study for feature films and whatever. I just wanted to be like a one-woman show kind of thing. But then back in the day when I started, which is now 10 years ago, it was kind of like not a thing yet. You had people that were influencers a little bit, and then you had like the big production companies, but everything in between, there was still like a massive gap. And I feel like that gap is now obviously rapidly being filled because content creators are so important nowadays. And then you have content creators that do it with an iPhone, and you have content creators that do it with a camera. And that's my category. Like I make social content. I don't do big commercials for television, like with a big crew, but I do deliver big commercials for online. And sometimes the reach is even like tenfold than television currently. But that is a whole field in itself that for me, it gave me so much freedom and so much adventure in my life because it is literally just me with a camera. I can edit, I direct, I color grade, I concept, everything is me, which means that I can go everywhere. People don't have to hire an entire team. They don't have to book like with a studio or have agencies fees or whatever. They book me. And within that, I have full control of the creative process in collaboration with the client, of course. But then the products I made or the products I create are my products. It's not just like one of the 30 people that worked on a video. It's me that made it. And that's something that gave me so much joy and freedom, and I could travel and I could make money and I can find determine my own hours. It was like I cracked the code. I know what I'm doing now. I've done it for a solid 6 years by then. I was like, okay, yeah, I can teach you. I can tell you how to find clients, how to use your Instagram, how to create this kind of video and stuff like that. So I just started to collect all of my experiences and thoughts and examples and then put it all into one big pile of modules. And then I created this program, and it took me a solid like 4 or 5 months to make. But then I took myself off the market for 4 months. I literally sat in my living room every single day with my freaking laptop and Canva and like create this thing that I had never made before. And I hired someone to help me with like the back end of it, of how to actually like make sure that the lessons are readable and that people can download a workbook and whatever. And then I took people with me on that journey on my Instagram and like literally, hi guys, I'm creating this module now. What would you want to know about this subject? And that really worked because people were kind of, this is the feedback I got anyway, but like people told me that it felt like they were creating it with me. Yeah, they had an influence on what I was going to teach them. So I felt like it was such a fun process, and it's something I'm really, really, really proud of. I mean, to be honest, like the whole reason why I think for me it worked, like how I could make a living of my camera is not necessarily my skills, not necessarily my specific vision because I'm so different than everyone else. Not at all. It's my confidence and just my willingness to just put myself out there and just fucking go for it. I think that is genuinely what got me the jobs that I have now. So this program, it means the absolute world to me. It actually makes me want to cry. It's so ridiculous.
What can people actually learn?
Yeah, nice. No, my course, it has 5 modules. The first one is literally like the camera fundamentals. What do you need to know? The exposure triangle, what settings are there? But then also my creative techniques. I use a lot of things in front of my lens, like a glass, paper, piece of plastic, I find, whatever, leaves, anything. And it just really just to show everyone that it doesn't have to be so difficult. It really isn't difficult. There's basically 3 things you need to know: ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. And then from there on, you need to find your own way of using the movements, the lenses and stuff like that. But it's not that deep. But I want you to understand that it's more about your vision than it is about knowing every single thing about your camera, because I don't know 70% of my camera, but I know how to use the 30% really well. And that's what's important, I think. And then the rest of the modules really focuses on positioning yourself, branding, what I did with my Instagram, my website, how that gained traction, how I used my network and how that network got me these types of clients, but then also money, how to charge money, how much, how to calculate your price, how to negotiate prices, how to sell your work. Like all of that is inside of my program. And then the last module is from concept to end product. So literally, okay, you've got your client, you've set on a price. What are you going to do now? You're going to brainstorm. You're going to find an idea. You're going to find a location. You're going to set up a call sheet and stuff like that. So literally every step you need to know on doing this as a photographer and videographer or making a living from your camera is in that course. But it is really up to you whether you're actually going to make that profitable. Because I can give you all of this like advice. I can give you all of these practices. If you don't go out and do it, then I can't promise you anything.
Yeah. A new cohort is coming, 28th of March, I think, if I remember well.
Yes.
So people can still sign up if they got hyped by
this story. And if you want to become that one woman or one man band and create content for brands, travel, do amazing things, and just make a living of your camera in general, then this is probably for you.
Awesome.
28th of March.
What kind of tip would you give a starting videographer, except buying your course, of course? But
buy my course, nothing else. No. Go out there and do it. Stop thinking about it. Just do it. Because it's a bit of cliche, but like you can think about all of the transitions you're gonna use and like the camera and the lens and stuff, but you won't know what it will feel like or look like if you don't do it. And also there is, I think, 30% of the videos or photos I've ever created you have probably never seen online or I've never shown because I don't like the way they came out. But those are the videos and photos that taught me how to do it. So if I didn't go out and fail or like made something I didn't like, then I wouldn't the next time make something I would like. So really just go out and do it and don't be so afraid that people don't like it. Like, no one gives a shit. Just fucking do it.
What I find insane about your personality is like if you don't shoot, you do the online course. If you don't do the online course, you do the documentary. If you don't do the documentary, you do something else. While this creative process also, you need to recharge, you need to kind of reconnect. You maybe need to pick up your own camera to kind of like, like how do you do this? When do you do this? Do you do this?
Oh no, I'm struggling with that. I mean, it's my brain doesn't really stop ticking, and to a point where I'm literally just like my breath is up in my throat. Sometimes it's not necessarily always healthy, but I can't really stop. It's just like right now as well. This week I have 2 actual jobs myself as a videographer, and my lunch is next week. And like there's a lot of things going on at once, and there's I think multiple times a day where I'm like, okay, what am I doing? But honestly, journaling and going out for a walk, just writing things down constantly. I have hundreds of lists on my desk and just, I don't know. And sometimes also just like write off the day, watch Netflix for a day, or like don't punish myself or just don't push myself too much, because I do need those days. I think I have one day a week where I'm like, bleh. And I'm literally just like on my couch just watching Netflix or going on walks or something. But no, it's I don't know, it's just it's kind of like the blessing and the curse of being creative, I guess, or being ambitious. There's just always something to do, like always.
What do you find the most difficult part about being self-employed?
Well, the thing that there's always something you can do. So it never stops. There's never a moment where at the end of the day at 6 o'clock you leave the office and you go home and that's that. You can't really leave it anywhere else because it's there. So when I'm in bed or when I'm doing something else, it's always on my mind. And sometimes I love it because that brings me places and it helps me create these things or like build this community or whatever. But then sometimes like, shut up. Like, I just stop. I just want to chill for a hot sec. So that is something I really, really, sometimes I really do struggle with it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that as well. And as well, like as a freelancer, even though right now I'm in a really good place, like financially, but there is still times where you're like, oh, it's been a bit quiet this month. Like you can have a really, really busy month and kind of hanging on by a thread. And then a couple of months, you're like, oh, I could use a little bit more jobs. I think that's just, I don't know any freelancer that doesn't have those periods. But then that's training your trust, training that. Use that time to actively rest and chill because it will come back again, the busyness. It's never been a moment where actually I was in trouble. Like since the moment I started freelancing, which is now 10 years ago, I've never had an actual moment where I was like, ooh, don't know if I'm going to survive. So yeah, part of freelancing.
Cool. What's next for you?
Well, I've been asking myself this. I really want to build out this academy and community because I'm enjoying it so much to bring people together. People meet up outside of my course, people that know each other because of this program. The work that they put out, the clients they get to work with, that gives me so much joy and fulfillment because sometimes with my own work, it felt a little bit empty because it's just me that gets to go on a plane and go to a cool place. And then it's just me showing off of like, cool, look at my life. But me being able to share that with other people and see them succeed in it is the most incredible thing. And it makes me really happy and proud. So I think for me, I want to focus on that and obviously maintain my jobs and go out there just to have my creative outlet every once in a while. But I want to focus on that because I see a lot of potential in there. And as I said, if I see potential, I need to get everything out. So I don't know. I hope it grows big. I hope I can help a lot of people. I hope hundreds, thousands. That would be so cool. And then, yeah. And then for me personally, I would like my documentary is a very, very big project that I hope I will finish somewhere next year. And it's a very personal story, very intimate. So I don't really talk about it that much because it's about my family. But yeah, I hope that by the time that's finished, I can portray myself or show myself that I am capable of those kind of things as well, like a story with emotion instead of just the pretty girls in pretty clothing. So yeah.
Cool. What was the best business advice or advice that you got from another person?
Well, okay. So for me, I can't really remember who told me this or where I got this from, but something I repeat a lot of the times because I really think it's true. Like if, and this is like just a practical example, but like if you have a store front or you have a product and you have a physical store and you don't have anything in your window, then no one is going to enter your store to see the product. So a lot of creatives are afraid to show their work. They're afraid to show up and say like, I am a videographer, I am a photographer. But if you don't have that window filled with stuff that you've created, then no one is going to walk in. So that like having your portfolio, going out and shoot, even though it's shitty or not that great, or you don't have a great camera, if you do that, that's the only way you're going to find out your own style, find clients, be recognized for what you do or whatever. Like I said, don't think about it, do it. I can't remember who or where I got this from, but I think that's the one thing I truly, truly live by. And I also truly believe that that's what got me here. I have a coach now, and she helps me. I've only recently started, but she really showed me that being yourself, that is the most important thing, because there's only one you. There's only one person that can tell that story. There's only one person that can make it that exact way. Yes, we can copy each other, but there's only one you. So don't be afraid to be that person and learn as you go. So yeah.
Awesome. I've always 3 final questions that I ask to every guest. But before that, thank you for this really nice conversation. I think it was really cool. We went from like the beginnings, using the camcorders of your parents and basically starting your career there.
Yeah, literally.
To creating with your classmates, over to having your first clients, having a big fuck up with a lot of grain, making it your style, and really, really crushing it on the freelance videographer lifestyle. And now really creating also your own course. So I think you've come a long way, and it's very inspiring, not only to me, but I think for many, many other people.
Thank you.
And before we leave off, I always have 3 final questions. The first one is, what are you learning right now that you're not good at?
Silly, but copywriting. Just writing captions, writing emails and stuff like that to get this story across in a way that other people can relate to it or see themselves in it or feel triggered by it. I'm not a writer, but I'm now learning how to build sentences and build a story in a way, which is really funny because building a short script is very similar to copywriting. Like it's a similar way of grabbing the viewer's attention, having a punchline or like a hook and stuff like that. So it's quite similar, but then just in writing and not in footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What name would you give this chapter of your life?
The beginning, funnily enough. Yeah. I feel like all of that what you just mentioned, that's been leading up to where I could finally take off kind of thing. I don't know, even though it feels like the beginning. It feels like the beginning of something new and something big. Yeah. And I'm learning so much, so many new things, so many things I'm not good at yet, but I'm trying to get better at. So it feels like I'm genuinely just preparing myself to become whatever. I don't even know what I want to become when I'm older. This is just the path.
Yeah. And the last question is, if you could send a SMS to all mobile phones in the world, what would you say?
Well, go out and do that thing you're thinking about. Like, just go out, whatever is in your mind, just do it, get it over with, and then go from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Eva, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast. It was really lovely to have you. And you guys have to sign up for the 20th of March. Check out Eva's website. We will also link, of course, the link of the course in our show notes. And one most important thing is that over 80% of the people that are watching this right now are not subscribed to the YouTube channel.
Subscribe.
So go subscribe,
Do
like,
it.
comment. It helps for the algorithm. It helps for getting discovered. So help your locals, help your supporters,
Yes.
right? Like we
Support
said
your
it. So
locals.
support your locals. And we see each other next week with another episode of the 301 podcast.